I have sort of a kind of an unusual question. Like when you were at Einstein, can you tell me what brought you joy?
Oh, the students. The students, it wasn't their fault, that they were in that environment. The students brought me joy because I could relate. I was somebody that I grew up in the system. I grew up in the Hickeys. I had a chance to go away to Iowa Wesleyan. I experienced an all-white situation in which I was the minority at the time. I didn't know how to read until I was a senior in high school. I experienced the power of a teacher, at Wendell Phillips. That was my alma mater. Miss Washington taught me how to read from scratch. So I could relate to many of the stories, making sure when I went to Phillips, I had perfect attendance for 3 years. And that's because, only missed 2 days of high school. But that's because, I went to school to eat. And while I was there eating, I knew I was going to get breakfast and lunch. And then I started playing football. Then I got involved. You're at school, get involved, do what you're supposed to do. I learned drafting. I knew geometry before I knew algebra. And people that really cared about me invested in me. So I wanted to give back in that regard, to invest in a lot of the students that, they didn't really know. They didn't know that they were just in this circumstance. I remember talking to a parent, and roaches were just coming off of her while we were talking. I didn't make light of it like, oh my goodness, oh my gosh, because I lived in a house with roaches. I knew what that was all about. So that kind of thing never fazed me. These were my people. I wanted to do whatever I could, and what happened was I was just strongly involved with them. That I wanted to make a difference, because somebody gave me a chance, and I wanted to be able to give my students a chance. And there's some success stories that I have, and there's some that I still keep in touch with students that are incarcerated. Well, one in particular, he did 20 years so far, 22 years, and he have 20 more to go. So I still talk to him. I still keep in touch with him because he's my student. He's my kid. So the kids definitely brought the joy.
Being from the West Side, everything that I said, like we talked about as far as being from out West, like the energy of it, the history of it, the geographic proximity of it, the community of it, the Black Africanness of it, the history of the creativity and resistance that's on the West Side that hasn't existed nowhere else in Chicago. It's existed, but it started here. So I think there's also a certain thing is like a 290 epistemology. You know what I'm saying? That's a term that I coined actually. But I actually believe there's a West Side of Chicago way of thinking. You know what I'm saying? And I think I call it like 290 epistemology because it's rooted in like certain type of, because the thing is the West Side has been so like detached for so long. Like the South Side for a long time was in proximity to things, institutions, you know what I'm saying? And like folks that came in the early 1900s, that was a different type of Black folk coming from the South that came to Chicago, doctors, postal workers, nurses, and working class. And folks came to the West Side with like sharecropping Black folks and shit like that. So when you are removed, when you're not close in proximity to a thing, you don't think about getting access to it because it's so far removed. And so since it's so far removed, what you do then, you begin to rely on yourself. and you create and you define yourself what brings you joy, what makes you happy, what beauty is. I feel like the West Side of Chicago has done that probably better than a lot of places in the country. You know what I'm saying? There's other places, no doubt, if you want to say Harlem, like and stuff. You know what I'm saying? If you want to say that Harlem, but the thing about West Side is 100% probably descendants of slavery. You know what I'm saying? Coming from this, 100% probably. You know what I'm saying? Very or no, close to it. Like we're talking about the black folk, probably 100% are descendants of slaves that came to the West Side. So that's a different type of black person in itself that we can't necessarily say exists like that in New York because it's a large immigrant population. You know what I'm saying? And so there's a certain cloth or like texture of blackness that's like deeply rooted in what's like American that exists on like the West Side of Chicago. And so because of that mixed with like the history of like street nations being founded here, you know what I'm saying? The Panthers, like the leader of the Panthers from the West Side, you know what I'm saying? Like they West Side oriented folks, you know what I'm saying? The creativity through the music, you know, the dress, the lingo, like even, you know what I'm saying? It's like, that's a black thing. Like it's an example of like bopping, that dance everybody was doing a few years ago. West Side, it's like, the West Side is an example of like what it looks like when you define what matters for yourself instead of thinking about being accepted or in proximity to like the other, the dominant, the white folks or whatever.